Commander Hana pressed her back against the cold crystal wall, her breathing heavy and ragged. The ancient plasma spear in her hands felt heavier than ever before. Around her, the last 12 soldiers of the Viridian Defense Corps checked their weapons one final time. Below them, the sound of marching grew louder with each passing second. "Commander, they're almost here," whispered Sergeant Kyung-soo, his voice barely audible over the wind that howled across Mount Solar's peaks. His young face was covered in dust and blood, but his eyes still burned with determination. Hana looked down at the weapon that had been passed down through 5 generations of her family. The plasma spear had never failed them. It had cut through the toughest alien armor, melted steel doors, and saved her life countless times. But now, facing the endless army below, she wondered if even this legendary weapon would be enough. The Kethvar had been unstoppable. In just 3 months, they had conquered every major city on Viridian Prime. Their black ships blocked out the sun, and their soldiers moved like a dark tide across the land. These aliens were tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. Each one carried weapons that could destroy a building with a single shot. "Remember what we're fighting for," Hana said to her soldiers. "Our families, our home, our freedom." She stood up and walked to the edge of the cliff. Far below, she could see thousands of Kethvar troops climbing the mountain paths. Their energy shields glowed blue in the dim light, and their heavy boots crushed everything in their path. Captain Lee Min-ho, her second in command, joined her at the cliff's edge. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, but he still held his rifle steady. "How long do you think we can hold them?" "Long enough," Hana replied, though they both knew it wasn't true. They had no backup coming, no reinforcements, no escape plan. This was the end of the line for the Viridian Defense Corps. The first wave of Kethvar soldiers reached the base of their position. These aliens moved with mechanical precision, their 4 arms working together to climb the steep rocks. Their commander, a massive creature with golden armor, pointed up at the human defenders and gave orders in their harsh, clicking language. "Here they come," shouted Private Sung Ji-woo, barely 18 years old but already a veteran of a dozen battles. He raised his plasma rifle and took aim. The battle began with a thunderous roar. Plasma bolts flew in both directions, lighting up the darkening sky. The Kethvar had better weapons and more soldiers, but the humans had the high ground and desperation on their side. Every shot had to count. Every second mattered. Hana jumped down from her position and landed among the advancing aliens. Her spear moved like lightning, cutting through their energy shields as if they were made of paper. The weapon's blade burned bright white hot, and wherever it touched, Kethvar armor melted away. But there were so many of them. For every alien she defeated, 2 more took its place. Her soldiers fought bravely beside her, but one by one they fell. First Private Kim Tae-young, then Corporal Park So-young. Each loss made her heart heavier, but she couldn't stop fighting. The Kethvar commander finally reached their position. He was twice the size of a normal soldier, with thick armor covered in battle scars. In his 4 hands he carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "Surrender, human female. Your resistance is pointless. Your world belongs to the Kethvar Empire now." "Never," Hana spat, raising her spear. "As long as one of us still breathes, we will never surrender." The alien commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Then you will die like the rest of your pathetic species." He charged at her with surprising speed for such a large creature. His weapons fired beams of pure energy that turned the crystal ground to slag. Hana dodged and weaved, looking for an opening. She had to get close to use her spear effectively. Finally, she saw her chance. As the commander paused to reload one of his weapons, she sprinted forward and thrust her spear at his chest. The ancient weapon struck his armor with tremendous force, but instead of piercing through as it always had before, something terrible happened. The spear shattered. The weapon that had protected her family for generations broke into 1,000 glowing pieces. The blade snapped off at the handle. The power core cracked and went dark, and the metal fragments scattered across the ground like fallen stars. Hana stared in shock at the broken handle in her hands. This couldn't be happening. The spear had never failed. It was supposed to be unbreakable, unstoppable, eternal. The Kethvar commander laughed again, louder this time. "Your primitive weapons are no match for Kethvar engineering. Now you will see what happens to those who defy the Empire." Around her, the last of her soldiers were falling. Kyung-soo collapsed with a smoking hole in his chest. Min-ho tried to stand but couldn't find the strength. Jiwoo was crawling toward his dropped rifle, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Hana felt despair wash over her like a cold wave. This was how it would end. Not in glory, not in victory, but in complete defeat. The HFY would finish off her and her soldiers, and then they would move on to conquer the next world. Nothing would stop them. Nothing could stop them. The commander raised all 4 of his weapons, pointing them directly at her heart. "Any last words, human?" Before she could answer, something impossible happened. The sky above them suddenly blazed with light as if a new star had been born. A streak of fire cut through the atmosphere, growing larger and brighter by the second. It wasn't a ship. There were no engines, no landing thrusters, no parachute. It was a person. The figure crashed into the mountain with the force of a meteor, creating a crater 20 feet wide and sending shockwaves through the ground. Dust and debris flew everywhere, and even the mighty HFY commander staggered backward from the impact. When the dust settled, a man stood in the center of the crater. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing simple armor that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced technology around him. In his hands, he carried weapons that seemed even more basic, just metal and wood and chemicals. But he was alive. He had fallen from the sky like a shooting star and survived. The stranger looked around at the battlefield, taking in the dead soldiers, the advancing aliens, and Hana standing there with her broken spear. When his eyes met hers, she saw something she hadn't seen in months. Hope. The man stepped out of the crater like he was taking a casual walk. Hana couldn't believe what she was seeing. He had just fallen from space without any kind of ship or protection, and now he was standing there like nothing had happened. His armor was simple metal plates held together with leather straps, and his weapons looked like something from a museum. "Who are you?" the HFY commander demanded. His 4 weapons still pointed at the stranger. "What species dares to interfere with the Empire?" The man looked at the alien commander with calm, steady eyes. "I'm Daeho." "I'm human, and you're in my way." "Human?" Hana felt confused. She knew about humans, everyone in the galaxy did. They came from a small blue planet called Earth, somewhere in the outer rim. But they were supposed to be primitive. Their technology was hundreds of years behind everyone else. They had barely learned to travel between stars. The HFY commander seemed equally puzzled. "Human? Impossible. Your species lacks the technology for interstellar travel. How did you reach this world?" Daeho smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "We have our ways." Without warning, the alien commander opened fire with all 4 weapons. Beams of deadly energy shot toward Daeho from multiple angles. There was no way he could dodge them all, but he didn't try to dodge. Instead, Daeho moved faster than Hana's eyes could follow. One moment he was standing in the crater, the next he was rolling to the side. The energy beams hit empty air where he had been standing just a split second before. Before the commander could fire again, Daeho raised one of his primitive-looking weapons. It was just a simple metal tube with a wooden stock, what humans called a rifle. He pulled the trigger once. The sound was different from energy weapons. Instead of a high-pitched whine, it made a sharp crack that echoed off the mountain walls. A small piece of metal flew through the air faster than sound itself. The bullet hit the HFY commander right between his 4 eyes. His massive body toppled backward and crashed to the ground, dead before he hit the crystal surface. Silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining HFY soldiers stared at their fallen commander in shock. Their leader, who had conquered a dozen worlds, had been killed by a single shot from a primitive kinetic weapon. "Impossible," whispered one of the aliens. "No projectile weapon can penetrate HFY armor. Your armor is designed to stop energy weapons," Daeho explained calmly as he reloaded his rifle. "You never learned to defend against good old-fashioned bullets." The HFY soldiers raised their weapons, but Daeho was already moving. He threw a small metal object into their group, something humans called a grenade. The explosion sent alien bodies flying in all directions, their advanced armor no protection against the simple explosive device. Hana watched in amazement as this one human, using weapons that looked centuries old, systematically destroyed an entire squad of HFY troops. He moved like a dancer and fought like a demon. Every shot found its target. Every movement was perfectly timed. Every decision was exactly right. In less than 5 minutes, 30 HFY soldiers lay dead or dying on the crystal ground. Daeho stood among them, barely breathing hard, checking his weapons with practiced efficiency. "How?" Hana finally found her voice. "How is this possible? Humans are supposed to be primitive." Daeho looked at her and smiled, this time with genuine warmth. That's what everyone thinks. It's what we want everyone to think. He walked over to where she was standing and knelt beside Sergeant Kyung-soo, who was still alive but badly wounded. Let me help him. From a pouch on his belt, Daeho pulled out a small medical device that looked more advanced than anything Hana had ever seen. It sealed Kyung-soo's wound and stabilized his condition in seconds. Your technology, Hana began, is different from what the galaxy expects, Daeho finished. We don't build flashy energy shields or flying cities. We build things that work when everything else fails. He helped Kyung-soo to his feet, then turned to check on the other survivors. Captain Minho and Private Jiwoo were hurt but alive. The others hadn't been so lucky. I don't understand, Minho said weakly. If humans have this kind of technology, why does everyone think you're primitive? Daeho sat down on a piece of broken crystal and pulled out a water bottle. Because Earth is what the galaxy calls a death world. The conditions there would kill most aliens in hours. Deadly weather, poisonous atmosphere, dangerous animals, unstable geology, you name it. He took a drink and continued. Most species develop technology to make their lives easier and safer. We develop technology to survive. Our weapons aren't pretty, but they work in any environment against any enemy. Our armor isn't shiny, but it keeps us alive when everything else fails. Hana looked at the bodies of the Kethvar soldiers scattered around them. These aliens had conquered world after world with their superior technology and overwhelming numbers. But this one human had defeated them using simple, brutal efficiency. Why are you here? She asked. Why help us? Because the Kethvar made a mistake, Daeho said, standing up and shouldering his rifle. They attacked a human colony last month. Killed everyone there, including children. They thought we wouldn't be able to do anything about it. The air above them began to shimmer and hum. Hana looked up to see shapes descending through the clouds. Ships, but not like any she had ever seen. These weren't the sleek, graceful vessels favored by most galactic civilizations. They were angular and brutal-looking, like flying fortresses made of metal and fury. They were wrong, Daeho said quietly. The human ships settled into positions around Mount Salar, their massive hulls blocking out the stars. Spotlights blazed to life, turning night into day. Loading ramps dropped down, and soldiers began pouring out. Hundreds of them, all equipped with the same simple but deadly weapons that Daeho carried. A voice spoke from speakers mounted on the nearest ship. This is Admiral Yijun of the Human Defense Fleet. All Kethvar forces on this world have 30 minutes to surrender or evacuate. Any who remain will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Hana felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that had kept her fighting until now, but the solid certainty that things were about to change. How many ships do you have? She asked. Daeho smiled. This is just the advance force. The main fleet is still coming. He looked down at the broken pieces of her spear scattered on the ground. We'll get you a new weapon. Something that won't break when you need it most. In the distance, explosions began to light up the sky as human ships engaged Kethvar positions across the planet. The sounds of battle echoed through the mountains, but for the first time since the invasion began, it was the aliens who were on the defensive. What happens now? Kyung-soo asked, still weak from his injuries. Daeho checked his rifle one more time and started walking toward the human ships. Now we show the galaxy what happens when you mess with Earth. Inside the human command ship, Hana felt like she was in a different world. Everything was built from thick metal and heavy materials. There were no decorative lights or smooth surfaces like on other alien ships. This vessel was designed for one purpose: war. Admiral Yijun was a stern-looking man with gray hair and scars on his face. He stood over a tactical display showing the entire planet, with red dots marking Kethvar positions and blue dots showing human forces. The red dots were disappearing one by one. Commander Hana, the Admiral said, looking up from his display. Daeho tells me you've been fighting the Kethvar for 3 months with just a handful of soldiers. We did what we could, Hana replied, feeling awkward in her battered armor among all these professional soldiers. But our weapons weren't enough. Our technology couldn't match theirs, Yijun nodded. Technology isn't everything. Will to fight matters more. You held out longer than entire planetary governments. Sergeant Kyung-soo, his wounds now properly treated by human medics, stared at the tactical display in amazement. How are you winning so easily? The Kethvar have conquered dozens of worlds. Daeho, now wearing fresh armor and carrying additional weapons, joined the conversation. Because they've never fought humans before. They don't understand how we think, how we fight, or what we're capable of. I still don't understand, Captain Minho said. Everyone knows Earth is a primitive world. How do you have ships like this? Yi-Jun gestured to the metal walls around them. This ship was built in Earth's asteroid belt using materials mined from dead comets. Every piece of metal was forged in the heart of our solar system. Every weapon was tested in the vacuum of space. We've been building this fleet for 50 years, Daeho added. While the rest of the galaxy ignored us, we prepared for the day when someone would try to conquer us. Hana looked at the tactical display again. The human forces were advancing on all fronts, pushing the Kethvar back toward their main bases. But why keep it secret? If you had this kind of power, why let everyone think you were weak? Because fear makes enemies do stupid things, Yi-Jun explained. The Kethvar thought we were helpless, so they didn't bring their full strength to attack our colony. If they had known the truth, they might have sent 1,000 ships instead of 50. A communication officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Sora, approached with a report. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from Kethvar commanders across the continent. They're asking for terms. No terms, Yi-Jun said coldly. They had their chance to leave peacefully. Now they leave in defeat, or they don't leave at all. The next few hours passed like a dream for Hana. She watched as human forces systematically dismantled the Kethvar occupation. These weren't the energy duels and shield battles she was used to seeing. Human warfare was direct and brutal. They used explosives to bring down alien fortresses, kinetic weapons to punch through energy barriers, and tactics that the Kethvar couldn't counter. Your soldiers fight differently, she observed, watching a squad of human marines assault a Kethvar stronghold on the display screen. Earth is a dangerous place, explained Corporal Jinwoo, a grizzled human veteran with mechanical implants replacing his left eye. Every human learns to fight from childhood because everything on our planet wants to kill us. Poisonous animals, deadly weather, hostile environments. We don't survive by being gentle. Hana thought about her own world, Viridian Prime. It had been peaceful before the invasion. They had cities with parks and schools where children could play safely. Most people had never held a weapon until the Kethvar arrived. Is Earth really that dangerous? She asked. Jinwoo nodded grimly. My hometown gets hit by hurricanes that would destroy most alien cities. We have animals that can bite through steel and plants that can dissolve organic matter. The gravity is so strong that most galactic species can't even stand up there. That's why every human is a soldier, Daeho said. We don't have a choice. You adapt or you die. As the battle continued, Hana began to understand something important. The humans weren't just better fighters. They thought differently about war itself. While other species tried to minimize casualties and damage, humans focused on winning completely and quickly. Your weapons are so simple, Kyung-soo observed, handling one of the human rifles with fascination. But they work better than anything we had. Simple means reliable, Daeho explained. This rifle will fire underwater, in the vacuum of space or in a radiation storm. It doesn't need rare crystals or complex power sources, just metal and chemicals. Lieutenant Sora approached again with another update. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting Kethvar reinforcements approaching the system. 200 ships, including their mobile battle stations. Instead of looking worried, Yi-Jun smiled. Perfect. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them to send the big guns. The big guns? Hana asked. You haven't seen anything yet, Daeho said with a grin. This is just our quick response force. When humans really go to war, we bring everything. Over the next few hours, more human ships arrived in the system. Not dozens, but hundreds. They came from all directions, as if they had been waiting just outside sensor range for the right moment to strike. But these new ships were different from the first wave. They were massive, some of them bigger than space stations. Their hulls were covered with weapon systems that looked like nothing Hana had ever seen before. Construction ships, Yi-Jun explained when he saw her staring at them. We're not just here to drive off the Kethvar. We're here to make sure they can't come back. On the tactical display, Hana could see the human ships spreading throughout the system, taking positions around every planet and moon. They were building something, a network of defense stations and supply bases that would make this system impossible to conquer. You're going to stay? She asked hopefully. Not just stay, Yi-Jun said. We're going to make sure this never happens again. To anyone. Daeho handed her a new weapon, something that looked like a cross between her old spear and a human rifle. "We built this for you," he said. "It uses human technology, but it's designed like your traditional weapons. It won't break." Hana took the weapon and felt its weight in her hands. It was perfectly balanced, and she could feel the power humming through its core. This wasn't just a tool. It was a symbol of hope. "The Kethvar have ruled through fear for 3 centuries, Yijun said, looking out at the stars through the ship's main viewport. "They've conquered hundreds of worlds because no one could stand up to them. But that ends now. What about other species?" Minho asked. "Won't they be afraid of humans now instead of the Kethvar?" Yijun shook his head. "We don't want to conquer anyone. We want to make sure no one can conquer anyone else." "There's a difference." As if to prove his point, communication requests began coming in from other star systems. Species that had been enslaved by the Kethvar for generations were asking for help. They had heard about the human victory at Viridian Prime, and they wanted their freedom too. Hana looked at the messages flooding in and realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the oppressed had hope. For the first time in generations, the bullies were afraid. The age of the Kethvar Empire was ending. The age of human protection was about to begin. 2 weeks after the first human ships arrived, Hana barely recognized her own world. The smoking ruins of Kethvar bases had been replaced by busy human construction sites. Everywhere she looked, there were humans and Viridians working together, building new defenses and repairing the damage from months of occupation. She stood on the balcony of the restored government building, watching human engineers help Viridian workers rebuild the capital city. The humans didn't just defeat the Kethvar and leave. They stayed to help put everything back together. "It's amazing what they can do," said Kyung-soo, joining her at the railing. His wounds were completely healed now, thanks to human medical technology. "In 2 weeks, they've accomplished more reconstruction than we managed in 6 months. Hana nodded, still getting used to her new weapon. The spear rifle hybrid felt natural in her hands, but its capabilities were incredible. It could fire kinetic rounds like a human weapon, or generate an energy blade for close combat. Best of all, it was built to last. Human engineering didn't break. "Commander Hana," called a voice behind them. She turned to see Daeho approaching with another human she didn't recognize, a tall woman with short black hair, and the calloused hands of an experienced soldier. "This is Captain Yunji," Daeho said. "She commands the Human Special Forces unit that will be staying on Viridian Prime." Captain Yunji shook Hana's hand with a grip that could crush steel. "I've heard about your last stand on Mount Selar. Impressive work with limited resources." "Thank you," Hana replied. "But I have to ask, why are you really here? No species helps others without wanting something in return." Yunji smiled grimly. "Because we know what it's like to be underestimated and attacked. Earth has been invaded before, not by aliens but by our own people. We know what occupation feels like. We know what it's like to have everything taken from you." Before Hana could ask more questions, alarms began sounding throughout the city. The tactical communication system crackled to life with Admiral Yijun's voice. "All units, long-range sensors have detected a massive Kethvar fleet approaching the system. 700 ships, including 3 planet-killer vessels. Estimated arrival in 6 hours." Hana felt her blood run cold. Planet killers were the Kethvar Empire's ultimate weapons. Ships capable of cracking a world's crust and killing every living thing on its surface. 3 of them meant the aliens weren't planning to reconquer Viridian Prime. They were planning to destroy it completely. 700 ships, Kyung-soo whispered. "We can't fight that many." But Daeho and Yunji didn't look worried. Instead, they looked angry. "The Kethvar just made their biggest mistake," Yunji said coldly. "They're threatening to commit genocide. What difference does that make?" Hana asked. "Dead is dead, whether it's from occupation or planet killing." "The difference," Daeho explained, "is that genocide is the one thing humans will never tolerate. Ever." They made their way to the Human Command Center, where Admiral Yijun was coordinating with fleet commanders across the galaxy. The tactical display showed the approaching Kethvar force, a massive red cloud of ships moving toward Viridian Prime like a plague. "Admiral," Hana said, trying to keep her voice steady, "my people can evacuate if you give us transport. You don't need to sacrifice human lives for our world." Yijun looked at her with steel in his eyes. "No one runs. No one hides. This is where we make our stand." But 700 ship, Captain Minho began. We'll face 1,200 human vessels, Yi Jun interrupted, plus our new allies. The display screen changed to show space around Viridian Prime. Hana gasped as she saw the scope of the human response. Ships were arriving from every direction. Not just human vessels, but ships from dozens of other species. The oppressed civilizations that had sent messages after hearing about the human victory were now coming to fight alongside them. The Zephyrians are sending their entire home fleet, reported Lieutenant Sora. The Crystarch Kingdom is contributing 50 battlecruisers. Even the Peaceful Harmony Collective is sending armed vessels. How did this happen so fast? Hana asked in amazement. Because word spreads quickly when someone finally stands up to the bullies, Deho explained. For 300 years, the Kethvar have conquered and enslaved. Now for the first time, there's a chance to fight back. A new voice joined the communication network, gruff and filled with barely controlled rage. This is General Sang-Ho, commanding the Earth Defense Corps battle fleet. We are en route with the heavy assault ships. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. Hana had never heard of the Earth Defense Corps, but from the way the other humans reacted, she could tell it was something special. Even Admiral Yi Jun straightened up when he heard the general's voice. The big guns, Deho said with a savage smile. They finally get to see action. As the hours passed, more and more ships arrived in the system. The tactical display became a constellation of blue dots representing the Allied fleet. But it wasn't just the numbers that impressed Hana. It was the coordination. Humans had somehow organized dozens of different species into a unified fighting force in less than 24 hours. How do you coordinate so many different types of ships and weapons? She asked Captain Yunji. Simple communication protocols and clear objectives, Yunji replied. The Kethvar always overthink their battle plans. We keep ours straightforward. Protect the innocent, destroy the enemy. No mercy for those who target civilians. When the Earth Defense Corps ships finally arrived, Hana understood why everyone had been so excited. These weren't just warships, they were mobile fortresses. Each one was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons and covered in armor thick enough to stop planet-killer beams. General Sang-Ho's flagship, the Indomitable, settled into position at the center of the Allied formation. His first communication was broadcast across all channels, including to the approaching Kethvar fleet. Attention, Kethvar vessels. This is General Sang-Ho of Earth. You are approaching a world under human protection. Turn back now or face the consequences. The Kethvar response came quickly, transmitted from their lead ship. Human primitives cannot threaten the Empire. Stand aside or be destroyed along with this worthless planet. General Sang-Ho's reply was calm and cold. You were warned. What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. The Kethvar had superior numbers and advanced energy weapons. But the Allied fleet had something they didn't: absolute determination and human tactics. The humans didn't engage in the traditional long-range energy duels that most species preferred. Instead, they used their kinetic weapons and explosive missiles to close distance quickly, turning the battle into a brutal close-quarters fight where human training and aggression could make the difference. Hana watched from the command center as human ships deliberately rammed into Kethvar vessels, their heavy armor allowing them to survive impacts that would destroy other ships. She saw human fighters using their own vessels as weapons. Kamikaze attacks that took out enemy capital ships. They're insane, Captain Minho breathed, watching human pilots sacrifice themselves to protect Allied vessels. No, Deho corrected. They're human. There's a difference. The battle raged for hours, but slowly the tide turned in favor of the Allied fleet. The Kethvar had expected an easy victory against primitive opponents. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow conventional warfare rules. When the Kethvar commander finally ordered the planet killers to fire, General Sang-Ho was ready. The Earth Defense Corps ships had been positioned specifically to intercept those weapons, and their massive armor held against the devastating beams long enough for human fighters to destroy the planet-killer vessels. By the time the shooting stopped, the Kethvar fleet was scattered and broken. Those ships that survived were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. Status report, Admiral Yi Jun requested. Kethvar fleet destroyed or scattered, Lieutenant Sora reported. Allied casualties moderate. Human casualties heavy but acceptable. Hana felt a mix of victory and sorrow. They had won, but the cost had been terrible. Hundreds of human ships had been destroyed, taking their crews with them. Why? She asked Daeho quietly. Why sacrifice so much for a world that isn't even yours? Daeho looked at her with tired but determined eyes. Because if we don't stop them here, they'll just do this to someone else tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. On the tactical display, messages began arriving from across the galaxy. Other species that had been conquered or threatened by the Kethvar were declaring their independence. Rebellion was spreading like wildfire through the Empire. The humans had done more than win a battle. They had started a revolution. 3 months after the Great Battle, Hana stood in the war room of the human command ship watching a galaxy in chaos. The tactical display showed dozens of star systems in rebellion against the Kethvar Empire. Red warning lights marked worlds where fighting was taking place. Blue indicators showed systems that had declared independence. Green dots represented human task forces providing support to the rebels. 17 systems have broken free in the past week alone, reported Captain Taemin, the human intelligence officer. The Kethvar are losing control faster than they can respond. Admiral Yijun studied the display with a grim expression. And their response? Getting more desperate, Taemin replied. 3 days ago they used a planet-killer weapon on the Harmony Collective's homeworld. 2 billion civilians dead just to send a message. The room fell silent. Hana felt sick to her stomach. She had met representatives from the Harmony Collective, peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. Their only crime was asking for freedom. What was the message? She asked quietly. That anyone who rebels will share the same fate, Daeho answered. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by barely controlled anger. They're trying to terrorize the galaxy back into submission. General Sang-ho's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship. Admiral Yijun, report to my ship immediately. Bring Commander Hana and the senior staff. An hour later, they stood in the general's private briefing room. The walls were covered with star charts and intelligence reports. At the center of it all was a detailed model of the Kethvar home system. The Empire is finished, General Sang-ho announced without preamble. They've lost too many worlds, too many ships, too much control. But a dying animal is still dangerous. He pointed to intelligence photos showing massive construction projects around the Kethvar homeworld. They're building something new. Our spies report it's a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems, not just planets, but suns themselves. Hana stared at the images in horror. They would kill trillions of people? If it means maintaining their empire, yes, the general replied. They've already proven they're willing to commit genocide. This is just genocide on a larger scale. How long until this weapon is operational? Admiral Yijun asked. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if we're lucky, the general said, which means we have one chance to end this war before they can use it. He activated a holographic display showing the Kethvar home system in detail. The central world was surrounded by massive defense stations and protected by the largest fleet in the galaxy. This is Operation Final Strike, General Sang-ho explained. We're going to take every ship we have, every ally we can gather, and hit them where they live. Not to conquer, to end them once and for all. How many ships are we talking about? Captain Yunji asked. 3,000 human vessels plus allied forces from 47 different species. The largest fleet in galactic history. Hana looked at the display showing the Kethvar defenses. Even with 3,000 ships, the odds seemed impossible. Can we win? Winning isn't the question, Daeho said grimly. Stopping them is. Even if we lose every ship, even if none of us survive, we have to make sure they can't complete that weapon. Over the following weeks, Hana watched the largest military mobilization in human history. Ships arrived from every human colony. From Earth itself, from secret bases she hadn't known existed. The humans had been preparing for this kind of war for decades, building fleets and training soldiers for a conflict most people thought would never come. But it wasn't just humans preparing for battle. The Allied fleet included species she had never heard of, civilizations that had been hiding from the Kethvar for centuries, rebels who had been waiting for their chance to strike back. Look at this, Sergeant Kyung-soo said, pointing to a group of crystalline beings working alongside human engineers. The Mineral Collective. They've been extinct for 200 years, according to galactic records. They've been hiding, explained Lieutenant Bo-young, a human weapons specialist who had become friends with the Viridian survivors. Lots of species went into hiding rather than face the Kethvar. Now they're all coming out to fight. Hana spent her time training with the human special forces, learning new tactics and strategies. The humans didn't just plan to fight the Kethvar, they planned to fight them in ways the aliens couldn't predict or counter. "Your people fight like machines," she observed during a training exercise. "Very precise, very coordinated. That's how you survive on a death world," Bo Young explained. "Everything has to work perfectly or everyone dies. No room for mistakes, no time for hesitation." As the fleet prepared to depart for the final battle, disturbing news arrived from the front lines. The Kethvar had activated their system killer weapon early, using it to destroy the Kristark Kingdom's home system. An entire civilization wiped out in moments. The news spread through the fleet like wildfire. Hana watched human soldiers sharpen their weapons and check their equipment with cold determination. This wasn't about liberation anymore. It was about preventing the complete destruction of galactic civilization. "They crossed the line," General Sang-ho announced in his final briefing before departure. "No more mercy. No more restraint. We're going to end the Kethvar Empire permanently." The journey to the Kethvar home system took 2 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, Hana got to know her human allies better. She learned about Earth's history, the wars, the disasters, the struggles that had forged humanity into such effective warriors. "We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times," Captain Taman told her. "Nuclear wars, climate disasters, AI rebellions, alien invasions. We've survived everything the universe could throw at us." "Alien invasions?" Hana asked in surprise. "I thought humans had never encountered aliens before the galactic community found you." Taman smiled grimly. "That's what we wanted everyone to think. The truth is, we've been dealing with hostile aliens for over a century. The Kethvar aren't the first species to think humans would be easy prey. When they finally arrived at the edge of the Kethvar home system, the sight was overwhelming. The combined Allied fleet stretched across millions of kilometers of space, ships of every size and design. From human battlecruisers to alien fighters that looked like living creatures. Facing them was the entire remaining strength of the Kethvar Empire. Thousands of ships formed defensive lines around their homeworld, while massive space stations bristled with weapons designed to destroy entire fleets. "Final communications check," Admiral Yijun announced. "All ships report readiness status." The responses came in from across the fleet. Human vessels, alien allies, rebel groups, and species thought extinct. All of them united by a single purpose: ending the Kethvar threat forever. "This is it," Daeho said quietly, checking his personal weapons one last time. "Whatever happens today, the galaxy will never be the same." General Sang-ho's voice came over the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is your final briefing. Our mission is simple: destroy the Kethvar's ability to threaten any world ever again. Some of you won't survive this battle. None of us may survive. But our sacrifice will ensure that future generations can live free from fear." Hana gripped her human-made weapon tightly and thought about her broken spear, about her fallen soldiers, about all the worlds that had suffered under Kethvar rule. Today that suffering would end. "All ships," General Sang-ho commanded. "Attack formation. Let's finish this." The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin.